I like to find old pictures of random people from the past and try to share as much of their stories as possible to hopefully let their memory stick around just a little bit longer. And not too long ago, I made a video about Robert Paul, the 10-year-old newsboy from Jacksonville, Florida. Now that photo came from the National Child Labor Committee section on the Library of Congress website. And I said I'd do another one, but this time we'll be talking about Arthur and Joe, employees of the Pennsylvania coal mine in 1911. And this episode is sponsored by PIA VPN, but more on that in just a bit. Now, Lewis Hine was a photographer at the turn of the century who wanted to expose child labor practices in America. His work played a major role in the passing of child labor laws in the U.S. What he would do is he lied his way into factories and mills and wherever he could find kids working and took pictures. He would pretend to be a fire inspector, a postcard vendor, a Bible salesman. He would even go into these places and pretend to be a machine inspector to take pictures of the machines working, but actually he was just taking pictures of the kids working. But one thing that he did that resonates even now, over 100 years later, is that not only did he take pictures of these kids, but he also got their names and sometimes their home addresses. He used this method to give real meaning to these photos, so they weren't just pictures of faces and dirty kids working the streets. They were real people once you gave them names, addresses, and a little bit of story. But he also used the addresses so that he could go and visit their parents to try to find out a little bit more about why these kids needed to go to work. Like this little fella, Arthur Havard. He was a driver in shaft number 6. Drivers drove horses or mules through the mines to keep things moving. They sometimes also operated the elevators. It wasn't the most dangerous job down there, but none of them were exactly safe. He was about 13 years old here. Arthur Havard was born on March 15, 1897, to Thomas and Laura Havard. His father, Thomas, also worked at the mines. And his obituary in 1928 states that he had worked in the Ewan section of the Pennsylvania coal mine as a barn boss. Now, I'm going to be throwing some minor terms at you that you might not be familiar with, but don't worry, neither was I, and I had to Google a bunch of it before making this video, so I'm going to help you out. And for today's word of the day, VPN. Okay, it's not a word, it stands for Virtual Private Network, and it's the best way to keep your internet activity private. Now, I wouldn't say I use the internet for anything that warrants super secret browsing, but call me old-fashioned, I like to keep my business my own business. That's where PIA VPN comes in. PIA stands for Private Internet Access. It's pretty straightforward. They have over 30 million downloads so far, and it's easy to see why. They make it super simple to hide your IP address and encrypt your internet connection. This way, it shields your digital life from the eyes of your internet service provider, network administrations, and government censors. And did you know that some content is geo-locked, meaning it's only available in certain areas around the world? I wanted to watch Shawshank Redemption on Netflix, but unfortunately it's not available in the US. So I pull up PIA and I change my location from the United States to Australia, where it actually is streaming on Netflix. I select Sydney, turn it on, and then I refresh Netflix, and there it is. And now I can watch it, perfectly legal. Signing up for private internet access is risk-free. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 customer service already available. Visit the special link down below in the description or scan this QR code with your phone so that you can get 83% off of private internet access with 4 months free. That comes out to only $2.03 per month. The barn boss was in charge of mules in the underground mule barn. Now, this saved time because it would have taken over an hour to drive the mules in from the outside. This also means that Arthur most likely worked alongside his dad. His dad managed the mules. Arthur drove the mules. I think it's safe to say they bumped into each other. And according to the 1910 census, Arthur had an older brother named William, who was also a driver at the time. Now, This photo doesn't label that William is in it, but I kind of think that might be William standing beside Arthur. They look a lot alike to me, but let me know what you think in the comments. And also, if you like this video so far and want to see more, please be sure to give us a like and a subscribe. Every little bit helps. Now, a little while later, in 1928, Arthur marries Stella Kramer, and according to the newspapers, it came as a surprise to her friends. And then in 1942, we can see Arthur's draft card. He is now working at the Workmen's Compensation Rating Bureau, which, as I later found out, he was working more as an inspector in the mines. Now, I show these draft card pictures in my videos a lot, but something I don't think I've pointed out yet is that if you turn the page, you're basically flipping them over and looking at the back. And this is cool because it gives a description of the guy. If you never knew how tall your grandpa was in the 40s or what color his eyes were, well, here you go. Arthur was 5'7" and 180 pounds. Kind of stocky. He had blue eyes and gray hair. A few years later, in 1950, he's still working as a compensation inspector at the mine. He and Stella have 2 kids and a grandson. Arthur died 2 years later in 1952 at the age of 54. And the handwriting on his death certificate is a little hard to read the exact cause of death, but the first word looks like it might say coronary. And his obituary confirms it. Heart attack. And at 54, he wasn't very old. But there's no telling what kind of health issues Arthur had left over from working in the mines basically his whole life. And I can't really help but wonder what Arthur's opinion was about the mines. He worked there his whole life, but did he enjoy it, or was it just all he knew because he started out so young? Quick note here. I want to thank every one of you who watches, likes, and has subscribed to this channel and comments on this channel and has sent me emails and bought t-shirts. It's been pretty overwhelming. We started this channel / podcast, whatever you want to call it, about 6 months ago. And I had no idea how it was going to go. And I certainly didn't expect it to be so positive. That I didn't expect so many folks to really be into the same kind of strange, curious things that I'm into. But your support has been overwhelming and very appreciated because it gives me a lot of motivation to keep telling these stories and put more work into them. Now, this isn't my full-time job, but maybe it will be. And you've probably noticed a few of the videos have sponsors attached to them, and I really appreciate them too, because maybe one day this could be my full-time job and these videos will come out a whole lot faster. But let's get back to it. Now, this picture doesn't have any identified names, but I wanted to share it anyway. It's an inside look at a coal breaker. Now, here's one of those terms I want to make sure we get right. So I've pulled up the old Google, and it tells me that a coal breaker was primarily used in the coal industry to break up large chunks of coal and sort them into various sizes for sale. These facilities also removed impurities such as slate from the coal to increase its value. They are considered the forerunner of modern coal preparation plants, which combine washing, crushing, grading, and shipping to a single facility. So I guess basically these kids were sitting there smashing up big chunks into smaller chunks to send down the chute to the train to be hauled off to wherever the coal went after that. But the caption of this picture says, "A view of Ewan Breaker of the Pennsylvania Coal Company. The dust was so dense at times as to obscure the view. This dust penetrates the utmost recesses of the boys' lungs. A kind of slave driver sometimes stands over these boys, prodding or kicking them into obedience. Location, South Pittston, Pennsylvania." Now, this picture is just nuts to me, and I had to share it because it really gives an inside look at what these boys had to deal with every day. And, not just boys, but grown men too. People of all ages worked in the mines. Like Joe Puma. He is a nipper, which is an entry-level position where a person acts as a general assistant. They were mostly responsible for delivering and transporting equipment, tools, and supplies to support the mining crew. They are considered the right hand on site, and their role is crucial for keeping the mine running smoothly and is often the first step in an underground mining career path. Joe is about 14 here in the elevator. The note from Mr. Hine on this one says, "At the close of the day, waiting for the cage to go up. The cage is entirely open on two sides and not very well protected on the other two, and is usually crowded like this." I liked this one because if you look at it close, I'll zoom in for you, you can see the flames on their little hood lamps are lit because they had lamps on top of their heads, but they weren't lamps, they were burning flames. And you can actually see them in this picture. Now, Joe was born in Italy in 1897 and came to America with his family in 1906. And I know this off of census records. His father is 54 on the 1910 census and is listed as not working, but Joe is. Maybe Joe's dad was disabled and he couldn't go to work, so his kids had to. Because Joe's older brother, Charles, is working as a driver for a grocer. Now, Ancestry has not only a World War I service record for him, but also a veteran pension application for Joe. These are awesome because unlike just draft cards, they give you a lot more detail. It also tells us that he was born in Montedoro, Italy. I'm sure I butchered that, but that's all I got. Now, if this were your own ancestor, something like this could be huge because this gives you not just the country that he came from, but the specific town. And at that point, you can go even further and see what kind of cemeteries are out there that bear the family name and maybe even keep going back a few generations. He worked as a cook on the 51st and 69th hospital trains, which did what they sound like. They were responsible for carrying wounded soldiers away from the front lines and to the hospitals. They were marked with giant red crosses to avoid being attacked. But they still hid in tunnels where possible, though, because they wanted to just be sure. So Joe was relatively safe during the war. Well, as safe as you could be, probably. And I'm sure his family was relieved when they found out that he was going to be stationed on one of these things. Joe survived the war without injury and married Angelina Capizzi in 1921. Still living in Pittston, Pennsylvania in 1930, they lived with his parents. His dad was 75 on that census and still listed as unemployed. Now, this is something to watch out for. Check this out. On the same 1930 census, it lists Alessandro, Josephine, Teresa, and Sam as sons of the head of household, or Alessandro Puma in this case. But they should be listed as his grandchildren, and it'll usually say grandson or granddaughter or grand DAU, but they're not. They are actually Joe's kids. This is one more friendly reminder to slow down when looking at records, because they're wrong a lot, and you have to get used to it. This isn't like engineering where it's a perfect science. There's a lot of errors and problems and mistakes, and you have to look at it all together in order to get the whole picture. Joe was working as a truck driver in Pittston before moving to Geneva, New York. He died at 68 years old in 1965 after a brief illness. He left behind his wife, Angelina, 4 sons, and 7 daughters. That's a lot. The collection of Lewis Hine's work on the Library of Congress website is pretty huge. It was really hard to just pick 1 or 2 stories. So in the process, I started picking several stories, and I've got a few folders on my laptop that I'm going to dig a little deeper into, and some of them are a little local to me, and maybe we can go pay them a visit. I grew up watching the History Channel and seeing photos like these in documentaries, and I even heard stories from old farmers and relatives who lived through it themselves and had to work as kids. I even had to go out into the fields a few times and throw hay when I was 13, 14 years old, and it sucked. I hated it. But I did it. I made about $30 in one day, and I probably spent that on, I don't know, baseball cards or something. No, I don't know. What would I have spent that on? Something dumb. But not food for my family in the Great Depression, I could tell you that. And I've seen pictures like these a lot. And I've always wondered, whatever happened to those kids? Did they grow up? Did they have a terrible accident at work? What happened to them? Because they were from 100 years ago. And now I'm starting to find out.